All right, let's dive into some early 20th century weird fiction. You listeners wanted to explore Weird Tales magazine. Well, we're going deep with Volume 1, Number 2 from April 1923.
Ooh, excellent choice.
I gotta say, even just glancing at the table of contents, I was hooked.
Yeah.
Medical mysteries, vengeful spirits, even a hint of Egyptian curses.
Well, you picked a fascinating period. The early 20th century was a time of immense change. And those stories, they often reflect the anxieties, the fascinations of that era.
Yeah, for sure. This issue, phew, we got a lot to unpack.
We do.
So starting with the magazine itself, published by the Rural Publishing Corporation, cost 25 cents.
That's a pretty penny back then.
Oh, yeah, it was. It's a mix, too.
Yeah.
Short stories, novelettes, even some articles.
Had to give the readers their money's worth. And looking at that table of contents, we see titles like The Scar, Beyond the Door, The Body Master, each one hinting at, well, different kinds of thrills and chills.
Yeah, The Scar, that one caught my eye right away.
Oh, good one.
It's about a doctor, Dr. Carlson, gets kidnapped. He's got to use his, medical know-how to escape. There's even a thrilling car chase.
Pretty cutting edge for 1923. Cars and telephones, they were still relatively new technologies, and they often appear in these stories as symbols of both progress and, potential danger.
Right.
In The Scar, that car becomes a tool both for the kidnappers and for Dr. Carlson's daring escape.
Totally. And the story takes place in this opulent mansion, which turns out to be a hideout, and Carlson realizes he's in a race against time, not just to save himself, but also the woman he's treating, Ina Holden.
And Ina's predicament held captive because of a family secret that speaks to the social anxieties of the time.
Oh, absolutely.
The fear of scandal, the pressure to maintain this respectable facade. I mean, these were very real concerns for people in the early 20th century.
For sure. It's like almost a proto-noir thriller.
Yeah.
With a touch of the bizarre. The story uses the setting and technology of the time to create a sense of both familiarity and unease.
Absolutely. And speaking of unease, let's shift gears a bit. Beyond the Door. That one dives headfirst into psychological horror. It follows this naturalist as he's slowly driven mad by, well, something lurking in his own home.
Ooh, yeah, there's that one line that gave me chills. The thing before me was not a dog. It's so simple, yet so effective in building that suspense. The author, Paul Suter, he really knows how to get under your skin.
Yeah. It's a masterful use of suspense, psychological horror. It makes it a standout. But there's also this recurring motif of the well, and it plays a significant role in the naturalist's descent into madness.
Wells have long held a place in folklore and mythology. They often represent gateways to the underworld or sources of ancient power.
And in a time of such rapid societal change, the world is transitioning from a rural agrarian society to a more urban industrialized one. I mean, those ancient fears of the unknown, they would have resonated even more strongly with readers.
Totally.
Beyond the Door taps into that primal fear of what might be lurking beneath the surface, both literally and, well, figuratively.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of things lurking beneath the surface, our next stop takes us to The Body Master, where a detective faces off against a villain with a truly unsettling power, the ability to control minds.
Oh, yeah.
Can you imagine the fear that this concept would have evoked in readers?
This was a time when psychology was a relatively new field.
Right.
And the idea of the subconscious mind, of hidden desires, motivations, it was both fascinating and, well, frightening.
Totally. The Body Master is like this shadowy puppet master, pulling the strings of unsuspecting victims. The detective, he's racing against time to stop him, all while grappling with this terrifying possibility that his own mind could be compromised.
And the story never fully explains the mechanics of the Body Master's power either, which adds to the sense of mystery, the dread.
Oh, for sure.
Is it science? Is it magic? Something else entirely. That ambiguity, it leaves the reader to grapple with their own anxieties about the limits of human understanding and the potential for manipulation.
Back again for more Weird Tales. Ready for more eerie encounters and unsettling stories.
You bet. This issue is a treasure trove. What stood out to you so far?
I think The Body Master left the biggest impression. That idea of someone controlling your mind, making you do things against your will, it's just terrifying.
It really is. It taps into something very primal, doesn't it? The loss of autonomy, the violation of our very thoughts. No wonder it's a theme that pops up again and again in weird fiction. Speaking of which, let's delve into another story that plays with those ideas, The Incubus.
Just the title sends chills down my spine. What can you tell us about it?
This story takes us to ancient Egypt, a setting that, well, clearly fascinated Weird Tales readers. It's a tale of obsession, revenge, and a mysterious force that haunts this hidden tomb. Imagine, you're an archaeologist, right? You're exploring this labyrinthine tomb deep beneath the desert sands, and you stumble upon this hidden chamber sealed for centuries. Inside, a sarcophagus adorned with these strange hieroglyphics, and this sense of foreboding just chills you to the bone.
Okay, you've definitely set the stage for a creepy tale. But what exactly is this incubus?
That's the mystery, isn't it? The story never fully explains what this force is. Is it some supernatural entity? A manifestation of the archaeologist's own guilt? It's that ambiguity that makes it so effective.
It's like the story invites you to fill in the blanks with your own fears and anxieties. And speaking of anxieties, this issue was published just a few years after the discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb, which, sparked this global obsession with Egyptian curses.
Yeah.
Do you think that real-world event might have influenced these stories?
Absolutely. The timing is just too perfect to be coincidence. This fascination with ancient Egypt, the power of curses, mysteries of the past, it's definitely reflected in several stories in this issue. Remember, the thing of 1,000 shapes.
The one where the archaeologist gets knocked out and wakes up in a prehistoric world. What was that all about?
Well, it turns out he's been transported back in time to ancient Egypt, where he encounters these bizarre creatures and undergoes let's just say a rather unsettling transformation. The story plays with the idea that the past isn't just a different place, but a different reality. A realm where our modern understanding of the world just breaks down, and that can be very frightening.
Okay, I'm definitely adding the thing of 1,000 shapes to my read with the lights on list.
Yeah.
But let's take a break from the ancient curses for a moment and talk about something a little more, down to earth. Remember that advertisement for the at-home electricity course we mentioned earlier?
Oh, yeah. It's a fascinating little window into the mindset of the era. I mean, this was a time of incredible technological advancement, and people were just eager to embrace the possibilities of electricity.
Makes you wonder what those early 20th century readers would think of our world today, right?
Mm-hmm.
With our smartphones and the internet and, all the wonders and horrors of modern technology.
Speaking of horrors, we've got another story that takes us deep into the heart of darkness. Jangle Death.
From electricity to crocodiles. That's quite a leap. What can you tell us about this one?
This story takes us to a plantation in Honduras. Bart Condon, he's the manager, and he's facing this series of unsettling events: poisoned water, mysterious fires, whispers of witchcraft. His rival, Armstrong, wants to buy him out, and he's not afraid to use fear and superstition to get what he wants.
So it's like a blend of crime fiction and the supernatural.
Exactly. We've got a mystery to solve: who's behind the sabotage. But we've also got this underlying sense of dread, of ancient powers at play. And the crocodiles, well, let's just say they add a whole other layer of menace to the story.
It's a reminder that even in the modern world, there are still corners of darkness where the rules we take for granted, they just don't apply.
And sometimes the most dangerous enemies are the ones who know how to exploit our fears. Which brings us to another tale that plays on primal anxieties: the snake fiend.
Yeah, the title pretty much sums it up. Snakes are creepy enough on their own, but a fiend who controls them? That's pure nightmare fuel.
This story's about Crimmy, a snake hunter who uses his slithering companions to enact a truly horrifying revenge. It's visceral, it's disturbing, it taps into that instinctive fear of venomous creatures, but it's also a glimpse into the mind of a psychopath, someone who takes, a sadistic pleasure in inflicting pain and suffering.
It's a reminder that sometimes the most terrifying monsters are, human.
Exactly. Sometimes the true horror lies not in the unknown, but in that darkness that resides within ourselves. But let's shift gears for a moment. Look at a story that takes a different approach to the unsettling: A Square of Canvas. This one's less about external threats and more about the darkness that can consume, an artist's soul.
Tell me more. What's the canvas in question and what makes it so unsettling?
The story follows Anthony M. Rudd, a painter driven by this insatiable need to capture the essence of life in his art. But he believes that true art can only be achieved through suffering, through pain. He starts by experimenting on small animals, then moves on to larger creatures, ultimately culminating in this final masterpiece that is as horrific as it is beautiful.
It's a chilling exploration of obsession, how creative passion can twist and warp into something monstrous. And it makes you wonder, what is the price of true art? Is there a line that should never be crossed, even in the pursuit of beauty?
That's a question that artists and audiences have grappled with for centuries, and, well, A Square of Canvas offers a particularly unsettling answer. But let's take a trip back in time now, shall we, to 13th century France, with a story called The Affair of the Man in Scarlet.
Intrigue in the time of knights and castles. I'm all ears.
This story has all the elements of a classic Weird Tales historical piece. A beautiful woman falsely accused of witchcraft, a gruff but compassionate headsman, a dash of the supernatural, of course, and this ancient law that allows for a very unusual marriage proposal.
A marriage proposal from the headsman. This sounds like a twisted fairy tale.
It is. The story takes place in the shadow of the guillotine, Mile. Bonacieux is facing a grim fate. But M. Capeluche, the headsman, he's a man of contradictions. He's bound by duty to carry out executions, but he's also capable of, well, surprising acts of mercy. And this ancient law, it allows him to save a condemned woman by marrying her.
It's a story that highlights the brutality of medieval justice, but also the potential for compassion, even love, to flourish in the most unlikely places.
And it reminds us that human choices, for good or ill, have the power to shape destiny, even in a world where supernatural forces seem to, well, hold sway.
Speaking of supernatural forces, The Hideous Face is a story that, well, it really got under my skin. Can you remind us what that one was about?
It's a classic ghost story with a weird tales twist. We meet Lawrence, a painter haunted by the memory of this Portuguese sailor he wronged in the past. And his guilt, it manifests in a truly unsettling way. A hideous face begins to appear in all of his paintings, driving him to the brink of madness.
It's like a visual representation of his guilt, a reminder that the past can't be buried, can't be painted over, and the setting, Land's End, adds to the eerie atmosphere too.
That isolated fishing village with its rugged coastline and sense of isolation, it becomes a character in the story, a place where the veil between the worlds, well, it feels thin.
Okay, I need a break from ghosts and guilt.
Yeah.
Let's explore something a little more adventurous. What can you tell us about the 40 Jars?
This story takes us to the Gobi Desert. Roberts, he's an archaeologist. He's excavating a lost city, shrouded in legend, rumored to be cursed. He's not alone. He's got his companions, Christensen and Porterfield, and a crew of local diggers. But their expedition takes a sinister turn when their camp is raided by this mysterious group known as the Yengi.
And these aren't your typical bandits, right?
Oh, not at all. They're described as almost inhuman, moving silently, their faces hidden behind masks. Their touch is said to be, well, let's just say it's not something you want to experience. Roberts and his companions, they're forced to confront not only the physical threat of the Yengi, but also that psychological terror of the unknown. And then there's the mystery of the 40 jars, these ancient artifacts that are rumored to hold a powerful secret.
Sounds like a classic quest narrative,
Yeah.
but with a touch of cosmic horror thrown in for good measure.
Exactly. It's a story that blends adventure, mystery, and a hint of the supernatural, creating this, well, unique and unsettling reading experience.
Okay, ready to explore a story that's a little closer to home, both geographically and thematically. The Conquering Will. That one really made me think about the nature of consciousness and the possibility of life after death.
Ah, yes. This one's a real mind-bender. We meet Gordon Page. He's on this expedition in the Canadian wilderness, and, well, tragedy strikes. A canoe accident leaves him stranded, injured, facing those harsh realities of survival. But as Page's body weakens, his consciousness detaches, and he finds himself drawn back to the woman he loves.
It's heartbreaking, in a way. He can see her, he can be near her, but he can't interact with the physical world.
It really raises some fascinating questions about the nature of consciousness, the possibility of life after death, the enduring power of love.
Okay, I'm ready for another dose of the strange and unsettling. What can you tell us about the Serpent of Suyin?
This story transports us to the shadowy underworld of Shanghai. It's a tale of opium dens, ancient curses, and a very unusual snake. We meet Alistair, a sailor who's fallen into the clutches of, well, opium addiction, and he owes a debt to Su Yin, a mysterious Chinese sea cook with a reputation for being, well, ruthless.
And Su Yin keeps a venomous serpent as a pet.
Yeah, he does. It's a creature straight out of a nightmare with glowing eyes and a hypnotic gaze. Alistair, desperate to pay off his debt, decides to steal from Su Yin, a choice that has, well, some deadly consequences.
Sounds like a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
But you said this story is also about redemption.
It is. Through his encounters with the serpent and with Su Yin himself, Alistair is forced to confront his demons, to find a way to break free from the cycle of addiction and self-destruction. The serpent, in a way, becomes a symbol of transformation. of shedding old habits and embracing new beginnings.
I love how Weird Tales manages to weave those deeper themes into, well, even the most seemingly outlandish stories. It's not just about chills and thrills. It's about exploring the complexities of human nature and the mysteries of the universe.
Exactly. And speaking of mysteries, The Hall of the Dead takes us into the world of Egyptology and, well, psychic phenomena. What are your impressions of that story?
It definitely has that classic haunted house vibe, even though it's, not technically a house. But this creepy old mansion filled with artifacts, mummies. Professor March, the eccentric Egyptologist, and his secretary, Annette, they find themselves caught up in a mystery that spans centuries.
And the story's climax. It takes place during a seance in the Hall of the Dead, where a psychic medium attempts to contact the spirit world. It's a scene that's both unsettling and emotionally charged, a collision of worlds and beliefs.
Okay, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to touch on a story that really surprised me. The Jar Dwellers. It's creepy, yes, but it's also surprisingly funny.
It's a delightful blend of the macabre and the comedic, isn't it? The story introduces us to Mrs. Hay, an eccentric widow who has a rather unusual way of, well, memorializing her 5 deceased husbands. She stores their remains in, well, jars.
And not just any jars. She chooses containers that reflect each husband's personality or profession.
Yeah.
It's both morbid and strangely endearing.
It's like a folk art take on the afterlife, a testament to her love for her departed spouses. The story's narrator, the census taker, he's caught between amusement, bewilderment, and a touch of horror as he tries to make sense of Mrs. Hay's unorthodox approach to grief and remembrance.
It's a reminder that death, as strange and unsettling as it is, can sometimes be approached with a sense of humor, whimsy.
And that sometimes the most enduring love stories are the ones that defy convention, embrace the strange, the macabre.
Okay, before we move on to the final part of our deep dive, let's explore one last story that caught my eye. Golden Glow. It's a blend of mystery, suspense, and a touch of humor, all set in a seemingly abandoned farmhouse adorned with golden glow flowers.
Ah, yes. This one has a bit of a haunted house vibe to it, but with a twist. We meet Dr. Honecker. He's on a road trip with his friend when they stumble upon this farmhouse. Honecker, being the curious type, decides to explore, but he gets more than he bargained for. He encounters this elderly woman with a gun who's determined to protect her home from intruders.
And then the district attorney shows up, investigating a train wreck that happened nearby. He suspects there might be a connection between the crash and, well, the farmhouse.
Exactly. And as they delve deeper into the mystery, they uncover a tale of hidden identities, past crimes, this whole web of secrets that stretches back decades. It's a small-town mystery with a touch of the supernatural, where everyone knows everyone else's business, but no one is quite who they seem.
I love how Weird Tales manages to weave these complex narratives into stories that are both entertaining and, well, thought-provoking. Golden Glow is a reminder that even in the most seemingly ordinary places, there are hidden depths, stories waiting to be unearthed.
Absolutely. And sometimes the greatest adventures are the ones that happen right in our own backyards.
Welcome back. It's amazing how these stories from Weird Tales have stayed with me.
They really do get under your skin, don't they? What's resonated with you the most?
The recurring themes of ancient curses, hidden knowledge. It's like a reminder that there are these forces at play in the universe that we may never fully understand. The Thing of 1,000 Shapes really played on that fear, that terrifying creature from the dawn of time.
Oh, yeah, that one. It taps into something primal, doesn't it? The fear of the unknown, of transformation, of losing our own humanity. Which, speaking of, reminds me of another story that deals with this unseen terror. The Whispering Thing. Classic Weird Tales mystery with a truly unsettling twist.
Yes, that one stuck with me too. Those bizarre deaths with, no explanation, the whispers that no one could trace. It's the kind of story that makes you look over your shoulder, even in broad daylight.
Imagine this, a series of inexplicable deaths gripping a city. Victims, found with expressions of pure terror but no signs of struggle, no visible wounds. Witnesses. They describe hearing whispers, feeling these icy breaths, but they can't see the source. It's like this invisible force is stalking the city, striking at random.
Chilling. So who is trying to solve this spooky mystery?
Oh, we got Jules Perret on the case, a brilliant French detective nicknamed the Terrible Frog for his tenacity. He's skeptical at first, of course, determined to find a rational explanation for the deaths, but the evidence, it just keeps leading him towards the inexplicable.
So how do you even begin to tackle a case like that?
He dives into everything. consulting with scientists, psychics, researching ancient lore, trying to understand, what this whispering thing could be. The story really plays with those boundaries between science, the occult, the purely bizarre.
And the tension just keeps building as the body count rises. Perez in a race against time, not only to stop the killings, but to preserve his own sanity, as the lines between reality and nightmare, well, they begin to blur.
The climax takes place in the lair of this notorious criminal where Perret finally confronts the whispering thing. I won't spoil the ending, but let's just say the story's resolution. It's both clever and thought-provoking, challenges our assumptions about what's real and what's not, leaves us with that delicious, lingering sense of unease.
These stories do such a great job of reminding us that even in our modern world, there are still mysteries that just defy explanation, things that lurk just beyond our understanding.
And sometimes those things are far closer than we think.
Yeah. Thinking about that makes those anxieties from almost 100 years ago feel, well, incredibly relevant today. And not just about the unknown, but also about, like we were saying, the darker parts of human nature, like in The Snake Fiend.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that sometimes the most terrifying monsters are, well, human.
Exactly. And that's what makes weird tales so compelling, I think. It's not just about chills and thrills, but about exploring those darker sides of human nature, the mysteries of the universe, the power of imagination.
It's about reminding us that the world is a stranger, more wondrous and, well, perhaps more terrifying place than we often care to admit.
So if you're looking for a taste of vintage weirdness, dear listener, I highly recommend seeking out a copy of Weird Tales. You might just find that the past holds more wonders and horrors than you ever imagined.
Until next time, keep those lanterns burning bright and those imaginations running wild.